3 years ago, I started my writing journey from the office computer all the way to finishing 3 novellas, a handful of short stories, and still currently working on my first novel. And I'm going to tell you my story as a writer. So, it all began January 22nd of 2022. Whenever I had the thought of I want to write a book, and I went downstairs to the office, went to Google Drive, made a new Google document, and I began writing. And what I wanted to write, I immediately knew what wanted to write, and that was my story that I've been having in my head, which started as a dream. And I was like, I want to write this story. And I had this script that I wrote about it so I could adapt it and it'd be a lot easier and take less time and all. So I wrote the prologue, sounded good and all. And then I set the time to do it every single weekend to write this book. And at the time I was like I didn't care what the word count would be or like I don't know, like I didn't put as much expectations on myself. Instead, I allowed the story to be the story. That's what I did, and I was on a roll. I kept on thinking about it too as I was going to school, and I felt very passionate of writing it. And I'll say early on, I found my worst days of writing it, which was on Wednesdays, because I always had something to do on Wednesdays, and usually the story wouldn't come to me like what's next. So yeah, Wednesdays were my worst days. And by the time it was March, so it's like 1 month and a half, I was like almost done with the book. So I was at the battle scene, and I was like, I don't know how to write a battle scene. I know what a battle scene is. Like I've seen it in many movies and all, but how am I going to write an effective battle scene? And I was like, I had to stop. I had to stop myself, and I had to do a little research. But I had to do it because I wanted to know how to write the battle scene. And I took some time to do that. And as I was researching how to do an effective battle scene, I was able to grasp a good idea of how to actually write my own. And I I realized that it doesn't have to be like an epic scale battle where the world's at stake. Like no, because it can be as small like focus on the characters, what is at stake for the characters, and that's what I learned. And as I was writing the battle scene, like I was learning so much from it. And by the end of March, I was able to finish my first book, which was a novella. I'll say it ended up being 17,000 words, 17 so words. So it got out of the short story, but I wasn't satisfied. I was like, I couldn't even reach 20,000 words. I was like, it was so crazy. I was like, man, what am I going to do? The novella I was writing, it was like a series, a trilogy, I can say. And my one of my first mistakes as a beginner writer was multitasking. So I was writing the first novella in the series while writing as well as writing the second one. So I was like, when I was writing the second one, as I was like early on, and I still had the script for it. It's in this journal, but yeah, I I was like, I was very excited to write the story, but my problem is I was just going back and forth that I wasn't as focused on the story that I wanted to really, really get done for a story that I kind of want to get finished at the same time. So don't multitask stories like that, especially with back to back books in a series. As soon as I finished the first novella, I went straight into the second novella. I was in on chapter 5, so it wasn't bad. It was the beginning of the story. And okay, second mistake, like revising. Yes, I was revising while I was writing the story for my second novella because I was like, something is just not right, and you just have that feeling like you have to like change something. Like it's like a tendency, like, ooh, I know something's not right. I'm like, let me go back and like just change this little thing and just then move on. It worked out. It it flowed better, and then I went to chapter 5. So yeah, but try not to revise your book while you're actually writing that story. So I had a script based on it, but when I as I was writing, I began to realize I don't really need the script. Like like I had the story beats. I know what is going to happen, but the story feels like a bit incomplete. And having the script as an outline is great, but fully relying on it was like a limitation. And don't allow something to limit your storytelling. And sometimes you gotta think outside the box. And that's what I did with my second novella. And as I was writing, I was like, I I remember the story pretty well. And I I'll say with this, it's not that I like put this like to the side completely. I used it as reference if I had like certain lines, but I didn't let it like dominate like my writing process. I was like really on track. I was like writing consistently. And I was in the middle of chapter 12 whenever I I just didn't know what was going to go next. Like the words weren't coming to me and I was like, it's weird. I'm like, why? And then it took me like days and I don't know, I was in art class and I asked this one of my classmates a question like, what can I write next? Like, okay, so it's the next day and uh something's about to happen. And my classmate gave me a good idea of how I could write the next day without even knowing what my story was about. And without his help, like I don't think I would have finished that novella. And that would have meant that I wouldn't have finished the series altogether. And that motivated me to finish the second novella, which I finished on May 16th of 2022. And it's funny because I went right into the third novella, which is the last book of the series. I felt like I had the whole entire summer to write the third book and finish it. That was my goal. That was my intended goal. So mistake number 3 was putting too much expectation on yourself. And when you put too much expectations on yourself or a certain deadline, you're unlikely to like meet the deadline. And when it comes to writing, writing is a process. You had to give it time for the story to develop. And if you don't, like you're probably not gonna finish it when you want to finish it. So I did write it, but I was like about up to like chapter 5 or almost at chapter 5, and I was like, yes, I was pretty disappointed, and I was like, I thought I was going to get it done. I thought I was going to get it done. I was like, nope, nope, I didn't, because I allowed myself to not write it. Like part of me just chose not to write it, and that's where accountability comes into play. Like you had to keep yourself accountable of how consistent you're writing. I'm not saying write every single day. Don't burn yourself out, but write whenever you're available and have a time period that you're going to be able to write. And if you need to like outline like a little schedule so you know when you're going to write, do that. My sophomore year, I didn't get too much into writing because a lot of classwork I was in AP classes and extracurricular activity, but that's not the only thing because I was also revising and editing my first novella. So the problem with that, okay, so it was September of 2022, and I was revising the prologue because I didn't like the prologue because every time I read the prologue of the first novella, I was like, I can't get through it, and I'm like, I don't think anyone else could really get through the prologue because I made it so unreadable. So I revised the prologue, and it took days. It took days, and I pushed aside the third novella, which was kind of a bad thing. But whenever I rewrote um, that prologue, it was better. It was better, less cringy. But hmm, let's just say I kept a little bit the same when it came to the ending of the prologue. But also, whenever I wasn't able to write the third novella, I would tend to revise the first novella like even more and even more. And I'm like, whoa, like I'm getting nowhere with the third book, like for reals. And I had to spend my lunchtime to to write the third novella. Like that's like 30 minutes or so, unless I have some free time in class. But yeah, that's a lot. And by the end of oh no, because I made another deadline for myself to finish the third book, and I said by the end of the year, so this is December 2022, I am going to finish this. I will finish the series. I did not finish it because I put an unrealistic deadline on myself doing that. And I should have done that. I shouldn't have. I wish I didn't. I wish I just gave myself time. I wish I didn't give myself a deadline because I wasn't going to meet it. So I was getting into 2023 with like chapter 12, halfway through chapter 12. And what's funny is that on December 28th, let's see if I can find it real fast. Oh no, wrong journals. Oh, here we go. So, so December 28th of 2022, I outlined the rest of it. Hello. Yes, the story was in my head. I knew how to finish the story, but I had to sit down and take the time to actually finish the story through words. And oh my gosh, that's a lot. I know. But I'm going to pause right there. I'm going to pause right there from storytelling because 2023 was a very interesting year. So, so 2023 was whenever I was kind of like allowing others to like get sneak peeks of my stories, and at first I was really scared about that because I was like, I don't want to really read it, or I was like, do I really want to tell it? Are they really gonna be that interested in what I have to say about it, or like all that stuff? And like, and when I realized they were interested, I was like, oh wow, you want to hear about it and know about what I've been doing and why I love writing, and it amazed me. It really amazed me, and on January 13th of 2023, I told my friend about my story. She was actually the first one I told about my story, and I was like, I don't like my villain in the first novella, and we were talking about that, and then throughout the evening, we were like, this is the perfect villain, and I like this villain so much that I kind of had a crush on him. And I was like, oh, I wish I didn't do whatever I did with that character because I really liked him as a character. I'm like, why did I do that? But, anyways, yes, I did plenty of revisions and all, but also I found a writing buddy, an actual writing buddy, on the bus. So we had the same interest of writing stories, and we would talk to each other about writing, and it was just so amazing. I was like, after all this time, like we've been riding the bus and like just didn't know about it. I'm like, I wish I knew sooner. I wish I was more open and allowed myself to like make new friends, and especially if they have a similar interest. I'm like, it's like wow. I'm like, yeah. And this is where I want to actually give a shout out to her. Uh, and if she ever finds this video, like really, because like like other than writing, we would talk about stuff about life and like what goes on. And, like we encourage each other, even though like we might have not necessarily like been through it. Like we can just feel each other's pain and I'll say like there's times that we were both angry that we both really want to do something, but like we managed to calm the other down and like yeah, it's like it's just that bond, that connection that we had with each other. It really touched me, and it was just very unusual to me because I wasn't used to it. I was like I would love to open myself up to others, but I'm like are they willing to really open up? She was a great friend, and she would be my editor for my novellas. Mainly grammar mistakes. I had a lot of grammar mistakes. Mainly those commas. She would always get onto me about those commas, and I'm like sometimes I would just laugh about it because I'm like, oh no, she found another like how? But yeah, well, it's really fun. It's really fun. And at times that I wasn't sure about things, I would definitely ask her questions. And of course, I told her about my books, and like the characters and all. And there's something I'll really get to later, or very soon, actually. So it's funny because in February, I was thinking about this story on the bus, and I was like, "Huh, I want to write this new series, like after the novella series, obviously." But yeah, but I don't know. Over the few days, I was like, "I really want to write this," and I told my bus buddy about this, and yeah, it was so great, and I was oh wow, because on February 25th of 2023, I began this new series, which was gonna be um a quartet of novels, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was like, oh my gosh, like the the journey of writing a novel began there, and wow, it it was like wow. And I just kept on thinking of it, and I can say like I had to stop the novel because I had to finish the novella. But yeah, writing the third novella was really a challenge. Like I was on and off like for weeks at a time, and when I finally got into it, I really had to push myself to do it. And when I was at the end, I was not expecting it to be the end, like literally. And I knew the last words of the story, but it was heartbreaking because I was like, it's not leaving the series behind. It's more of I I'm like I'm done with the story that has to be told, and it was hard. It was really hard. But I did finish that on the last day of my sophomore year, and I told one of my closest friends about it, and we hugged it out like it was like, oh my gosh, it was a wonderful, wonderful moment. Oh my gosh, I can never forget that. And ironically, that was in my English 2 class. Don't worry, my friends would know exactly who I'm talking about. Oh my. Uh, okay. So when I finally finished the novella series, like I still thought about it. I still thought about it. I do have some short stories and all that stuff. But also in 2023, I began um creative writing techniques, and I kept it in a binder. So this binder right here, and I made writing techniques. So uh, like how to do it. It's really simple. A lot of it is about characters and plot, and yeah, it's something I really like to do. Haven't gotten back to it. I really would like to get back to it this year, but it's really cool. It's really cool. I have like an outline. Here's a good example. Let's see. It's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. I made that during the summer, and it's so amazing. I love doing making my own writing techniques, but this is amazing. I was like, I thought I would never do this, to tell you the truth. Let's talk about this novella. I just finished the novellas. Let's talk about the novel that I'm currently working on. So the current novel I'm working on is a fantasy. And one thing I really want to improve in is the world building. Obviously the characters too, but yeah, one thing I really lacked in with my novellas was the world building and trying to explore, because I believe I took it for granted for like already having a story in mind, but like not having much of the world in there. So that's what I'm trying to improve in with this novel series. And let me tell you, it took me 5 months to finish chapter one, and it was it was a surprise. I was like, part of the reason was obviously because I wanted to finish the novella series that I was working on for over a year. But like putting the novels aside cost me a lot, because it cost me the to take longer on the novella that I'm currently working on, and it was really something. And like I said, I had the entire summer to write something, and I managed to get up to chapter 3. I'm like, yeah. So my writing went from like uphill to like crash. And throughout my junior year, I was like, I was really having hard times to write. And I was like, ooh, like when am I going to find the time to write this and all that stuff? And in September 2023, my English 3 teacher told me that I can't write around writer's block. I gotta write through it. Yes, 2023 was definitely the year I experienced writer's block. And I was really thinking about that advice. Can't write around writer's block, you gotta write through it. I wrote that down in my little journal that I kept bringing to school. And I was like, once I eventually like took that to heart, I was finally able to begin chapter 4. And that's whenever I started like actually writing on the paper again, because if I do not write this down, I'm probably gonna forget it because I can't just have my phone out at class and like do 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 do. No. Uh see, did I have a I don't think I had a deadline this time, but it was challenging. Yeah, it was definitely challenging at times. And whenever 2024 came around, like I didn't make too much progress. I was going very slow. And I really mean very slow. I was constantly in writer's block. And also, I'm going to tell you what got me out of writer's block was actually short stories. So, uh, a book series in the future that I want to write, those are what the short stories are based on. And I've read quite a few of them, and they're really cool. And my longest short story so far is about 7,000 so words. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And it allowed me to get out of writer's block. And whenever I was not writing that novel, that's where I was, the short stories. And 2024. Mm, my friend was going to move away after my junior year, and I was very disappointed. I like it struck me in such a different way. I was like, I was speechless. And one of the last things she told me, this is the writer she actually told me, this is my bus buddy, by the way, and it was a sentence a day keeps writer's block away. Sentence a day. That really touched me. Cause like if I can write one sentence, I can make progress. And I was like, really? I can, I can do that. I was like, and I'm just like that. That advice does not leave my mind. It doesn't, and I think of that every day. Every day. Oh, I feel like crying, y'all. Every single day. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? I'm going to write this thing that I really want, but I want to tell her before she leaves. So on the last day of my junior year, I was writing like crazy. When I reached chapter 7, I finally got to the part that I wanted to write about, and it was about this character. And when I got on the bus, with my bus buddy, I told her all about it. I read it to her, and oh my gosh, it was amazing. Like, like I'll tell you how long I wanted to write this character, and it's been like over a year since I started this novel, and I finally wrote what I really wanted to write, and that really motivated me to keep going. And like even though like something was leaving you, there's always something that's gonna come, like and that door is gonna open. Like you gotta take that leap of faith. You can't have that that one thing keep you down. You have to keep going because life keeps going. That summer, uh, you know, I didn't put expectations on myself. I was like, try to write. In the beginning of summer, I was like, I was really getting somewhere. And when I went on vacation, I kept writing, kept writing, kept writing. And while I was on vacation, it's funny because I felt like I'm not gonna finish the story. And it's funny because it was like 2 weeks after I left school. I feel like I'm not gonna finish the story now. And I was like, I was like, 4 books, 4 books that are gonna be novels. It wasn't until the term finish the story came. Finish the story was so significant to me in 2024. It was what drove me into wanting to finish the story. Further, go beyond my expectation. Just write like your life depends on it. Even if it was a sentence a day, write it. Finish the story. And it's funny because I wrote a song called Finish the Story. It's the opportunity. It's whether you're going to take it or you're going to leave it. And I want to tell you that that week while I was on vacation, I went from like about chapter 7 all the way to chapter 13. And I was not expecting that. I was like, I wrote 6 chapters in a week. And I'm shaking, but excited at the same time because I thought I would never do something like that. And like, that is amazing. That motivates me even more to just keep writing, finish the story, and write even more. Like, I'm gonna tell you, like, there's gonna be ups and downs. There's gonna be bumpy roads, but you had to go through them. It's really important to allow yourself to have trust the process. Allow yourself, just lose yourself in the moment. Like feel the words coming to you. Like even when you don't even feel like writing, allow yourself to loosen up. Open yourself up to like different experiences and different perspectives. And with writing, I've learned so much from that. Even on my worst days, I I try to write. On my best days, my mind explodes. But that comes from the passion and that fire that just burns so much that writing's my life. Now in 2025 or whatever this year this is, let writing be a part of your life.